This is a Two-Rock Classic Reverb Signature, which is the new model from the end of 2016 onwards. It's the end of a long story which I'll try and tell briefly. So, Two-Rock has always been a very aspirational brand for me. Didn't know much about Two-Rock amps before the mid 2000s, which is no surprise really, because Two-Rock didn't come into existence until 1999. And then I think it was Matt Schofield that I saw first playing a Two-Rock amp. And for anyone who knows Matt, he's just got that amazing touch and feel, tone that I just, really seriously impressive sound and dynamic and everything about his playing. And some other players that I really liked, Bonamassa at the time I think was using one. And then I stumbled upon John Mayer. Continuum came out in 2006. And there's that Gravity solo, and there's Slow Dancing in a Burning Room, and it's like, oh my god, there's a Strat sound that's just sent from somewhere else that spoke to me in a whole way that I was waiting for. A few months after that, I find myself, luckily enough, while working for Guitarist magazine in Hyde Park in the middle of 2008 with John Mayer, where he's there playing at Hyde Park and with all his Two-Rocks and everything on stage. We're doing some stuff with him backstage, and his PR person at that time gave me a copy of the Where the Light Is DVD, the one where he plays the acoustic, the small band at the trio and the full band set all in the one gig. And in with that are cut some kind of bits of him and around his life to give a bit of a feel of it. One of which he sat there, I don't know, up in LA somewhere, maybe Mulholland Drive or somewhere, with a custom reverb signature on top of a 212 amp. I think he's got a Line 6 DL4 and some big body Gibson, and he's playing this really cool stuff, little loop, and it just sounds mega. And so at that point I was like, right, this is clearly the amp for me. Fast forward again, working on Guitarist magazine, they did a series called the Studio Pro, which was more affordable, which came out. They came into Guitarist magazine. There was a Gain Master 22 and a Studio Pro 35. I reviewed them, felt head over heels in love with them. The Studio Pro in particular. Ordered a 50 and a 2x12 cab, and that was that. Until I sold it. Like all musicians, I wasn't really using it, and I was skint, which happens unfortunately. So I sold it to realise the cash back, and a few years later, ended up buying a Studio Pro 35, which we did. Dan and I did when we went to do a video with some, and the guy was selling it. Fast forward, get to NAMM 2016. Bump into Eli Lester and Max Skinner, who, as it turns out, have just bought Two-Rock back off Premier Builders Guild. You can read all about Two-Rock's history on the internet, but basically it was started by a guy called Bill Krinard and Joe Mloganowski, and I hope I've pronounced that right, in '99. They go through the usual thing, business builds, it gets sold to this group called Premier Builders Guild, build some amps, that ends, you can read all about it online. Mac and Eli bought it back. Hatched a deal to return my Studio Pro 35 and end up with this, which is, I'm just not even going to say any more words. It's been a really interesting story, this, because I became a bit obsessed with Dumble style amplifiers for a while. Actually got to play a couple, got to play one in particular, made a video about it for Guitarist, and through being lucky enough to meet the people I've met over the years, I've known people that own them, I've been able to talk to people that own them in detail, particularly the Overdrive Special kind of amp. What I discovered, the more I learned about them and the more I played them, there was really only one side of it that I liked, which was bizarrely the clean channel, because it was that huge you know, massive Fender on steroids with massive mids sound, which appealed to me as a Strat player and, you know, John Mayer. So I started to play some of the other Two-Rock models and found that I was erring towards that kind of the cleaner end, certainly what you get from the more effective Studio Pro, cost-effective Studio Pro series. And the Classic Reverb, which kind of came out at the same time as the John Mayer Signature amp, which as I understand it, was basically half of a custom Reverb Signature. Was a 2-channel amp, but it was just the clean side of that with a few tweaks. Played a few of these, plugged into this, and my initial thought about it was, well, it doesn't really remind me of the Dumble in the same way that a lot of Dumble clones I've played. It actually reminds me of a kind of supercharged Super Reverb, which is also one of my favourite amps, Fender Super Reverb. And it's a bit like the Super Reverb has gone to the gym, bulked up for 3 years, done a load of PCP, and and is now just this like absolutely thing that's just, it's got more mids, it's got more bass, it's got more treble. I was talking to Matt Schofield about it. He just says more better. It's got more better. So I kind of go with that. So what does it do? Well, it does that. Plus, it's got a load of stuff built into it. Maybe one day we can make a fully featured kind of demo, if you like. It's not really what these videos are about, but it's got an FET gain section, which does come from the front end of a Dumble. It's got different gains through the EQ section. It's got a 3-position gain structure, so it can sound more blackfacey, it can sound the Two-Rock standard, or it can sound more like the Matt Schofield, which is even gainier still. It's got 50 and 100 watts in this case, and it's infinitely tweakable in all the directions I kind of wanted my boogies and Fenders to be, but wasn't, you know, didn't quite get there in the same way. So yeah, that's what's good about it. It does everything on the clean side right up to like the most pushed Super Reverb you've ever heard, and then a bit as well. Yes, you might have noticed a bit of a continuity error. We've shot this in 2 bits because about 10 days after we filmed it, I got this new guitar, and quite keen to see how it sounded through the lovely Two-Rock and my pedal board. So just recorded a bit of that today, just getting used to it. It's very cool. More of this to come. Anyway, back to the program. The reason it's taken a few months to make this video is because I've been getting used to it. I've been doing a few gigs with it, I've been doing rehearsals, we've been recording in here with it, and the only thing I can liken it to, when I first got it, I felt a bit like, I for the first time ever in my life bought a new car just recently, a brand new car, and for the first, well, still, in fact, because it's only a couple months old, it feels like either I've stolen it or it's a hire car, because I've never had that experience before. And it's a bit like that with this. It's a bit like I've metaphorically won the lottery and gone out and bought a Ferrari. It's like I was sort of looking at it on the drive going, oh, I'm a bit scared to drive it today. Because it really is that. It's a totally different experience as a musical instrument. And I probably sound over effusive about it, but that's how it makes me feel. That period has kind of passed, and now I'm much more used to it. So how do I have it set? I have, I like the Two-Rock gain structure, the one of the 3. I like the EQ in the slightly more pushed position, although interestingly today Dan and I were filming some videos, and to tame it back a bit, I put the EQ in the 1 position. You can foot switch the FET gain in and out, which is really nice. And you can defeat the EQ completely. So if you switch the FET gain in, you defeat the EQ, it's much more gainy and overdrives really nicely. So still getting to grips with it. The EQ range in it is unbelievable. The headroom in it is, I've literally heard nothing, not another amp that I've ever played, including the Dumble, that's got the kind of headroom that this has got, which is really interesting because probably at least half of my mates who play it don't like it because it's too much, it's too revealing, too there, but that's the thing I love about it the most. With Two-Rock's recent history, I get asked all the time, you know, is it a million times better than your Studio Pro amps? It's a really interesting question. It's definitely different. It's definitely more detailed. It's definitely more versatile. It's definitely, you know, hand-selected components. They went through the mill with doing things like listening to different types of solder, would you believe? Chassis material, thickness. Apparently Eli tweaks all the Artist Series amps, he tweaks every single one of them as they go out the door for things like DC offset. I don't even know what that means, but you know, it's custom building to the nth degree. It's point-to-point hand-wired inside, by the way. So how does it compare? They are all definitely Two-Rock, and I don't for 1 second want to say what you read online sometimes, which is that the PGB era Two-Rocks weren't good. They were. I've had some of the best guitar sounds that I have ever had out of my Studio Pro 35. However, this is in a different league, and it's slightly surreal. Back to the kind of stolen car analogy that I made earlier. You know, I see Doyle Bramall playing it. I see Eric Johnson playing it. I see Matt Schofield playing it. So in that company, I definitely feel like a bit of a fraud. But you've got to have your dreams right, and the way this thing makes me feel is the difference. That's the difference, and you know, nothing can replace that.